morning. Chapter 5. The Dive was the teenage hangout in Royal City. It was on Main Street, 4 blocks from the high school. There wasn't anything special about it so far as Amy could see. A soda fountain, a short order grill, 10 tables with oilcloths draped over them, 8 shiny red leatherette booths, half a dozen paintball machines, and an alcove in the back. A jukebox, and that was it. Nothing fancy. Amy figured there had to be a million places just like it spread all over the country. She knew 4 others right here in the little old Royal City. But for some mysterious reason, perhaps herd instinct, perhaps because the name of the establishment sounded like the kind of sleazy dump their parents would disapprove of, Royal City's teenagers congregated at the Dive in greater numbers than they did anywhere else in town. Amy had been a waitress at the Dive for the past 2 summers, and she was going to work there full time again starting the 1st of June until the junior college opened in September. She also pulled a few hours of hash slinging during the school year, around the holidays, and on most weekends. She took a small allowance out of her earnings, hardly enough for pocket money, and the rest went into her savings account for college. On Sunday, the day following their senior prom, Amy worked from noon till 6. The Dive was exceptionally busy. By 4 o'clock, she was worn out. By 5 o'clock, she was amazed that she could still stand. As the shift change neared, she caught herself glancing at the clock every few minutes, willing the hands to move faster. Faster! She wondered if her uncharacteristic lack of energy could be explained by her pregnancy. Probably. Some of her strength was being diverted to the baby, even this early on. It was bound to have its effect on her, wasn't it? Dwelling on her pregnancy depressed her. Depressed, she found the time crawling by even slower than before. A few minutes before 6, Liz Duncan came into the Dive. She's looking smashing. She was wearing a skin-tight French jeans and a mauve and blue sweater that appeared as if it had been knitted on her. She was a pretty blonde with an extremely cute figure. Amy saw boys looking up from all over the room as Liz walked through the door. Liz alone, currently between boyfriends. She was always between boyfriends, but never for long. She went through guys the way Amy went through a box of Kleenex. Yesterday evening, Liz had gone to the prom with a one-night stand. It seemed Amy had that very relationship Liz had with a boy that was a one-night stand, even if it went on for as long as a month or 2. Liz never desired anything lasting. Unlike her high school girls, she was repelled by the thought of exchanging rings and going steady with just one guy. She liked variety, and she seemed to thrive on impermanence. She was the bad girl of the senior class, and some of her exploits were legendary among her peers. She didn't give a damn that anyone thought of her. Amy was drawing 2 frosted mugs of root beer from the soda fountain when Liz breezed up to the counter and said, "Hey, kid, how's it going?" "I'm frazzled," Amy said. "You get off soon?" "5 minutes. Doing anything after?" "No, I'm glad you came in. I have to talk to you." "Sounds mysterious." "It's important." "Think the house will treat us to a cherry Coke?" "Sure, there's an empty booth over there. You take Amy to it, and I'll join you as soon as I get off." A few minutes later, Amy brought the Cokes to the booth and sat down opposite Liz. "So what's up?" Amy stirred her Coke with the straw. "Well, I need to..." "Yeah?" "I need to borrow some money." "Sure, I can let you have 10 anyway. Will that help?" "Liz, I've got to raise at least $300 or $400, probably more." "You serious?" "Yes." "Jesus, Amy, you know me. When it comes to money, my hands have grease on them. The stuff just slips away from me. My folks give it to me pretty much whenever I ask, and the next thing I know, zip! It's a fucking miracle that I've got $10 I can let you have. But $300 or $400? Amy sighed and nodded. "I was afraid you'd say that." "Listen, if I had it, I'd give it to you." "I know you would." Whatever other faults Liz might have, she had her share. Miserliness was not one of them. "What about your savings?" she asked Amy. Amy shook her head. "I can't touch my bank account without Mama's approval, and I'm hoping she won't find out about this." "About what? What do you need big bucks for?" Amy started to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. She was reluctant to reveal her awful secret even to Liz. She sipped her Coke, buying time to reconsider the wisdom of sharing her misery with her friend. Amy? The dive bristled with noise, clicking, beeping, ringing, pinball machines, hard drive rock and roll on the jukebox, a babble of voices, bursts of laughter. Amy, what's wrong? Blushing, Amy said, I guess I'm being ridiculous, but I'm too embarrassed to tell you. That is ridiculous. You can tell me anything. I'm your best friend, aren't I? Yes. And that was true. Liz Duncan was her best friend. In fact, Liz was just about her only friend. She didn't spend much time with any of the other girls her age. She hung out almost exclusively with Liz, and that was odd when you thought about it. She and Liz were so different from each other in so many ways. Amy studied hard and did well in school. Liz couldn't care less about her grades. Amy wanted to go to college. Liz abhorred the idea. Amy was introverted, downright shy on occasion. Liz was outgoing, bold, even brassy at times. Amy liked books. Liz preferred movies and Hollywood fan magazines. In spite of the fact that Amy was in a rebellion against her mother's excessive religious fever, she still believed in God, but Liz said that the whole concept of God and life after death was a crock. Amy didn't care much for booze or pot and used them only when she wanted to please Liz. But Liz said that if there was a God, which she assured Amy there was not, he would be worth worshiping just because he had created liquor and marijuana. Even though the two girls differed in countless ways, their friendship flourished. The main reason it flourished was that Amy worked very hard to make a success of it. She did pretty much what Liz wanted to do, said, and what she figured Liz wanted to hear. She never criticized Liz, always humored her, always laughed at her jokes, and nearly always agreed with her opinions. Amy had put an enormous amount of time and energy into making the relationship last, but she had never stopped to ask herself why she cared so much about being Liz Duncan's best friend. Last night in bed, Amy had wondered if she'd subconsciously wanted Jerry Galloway to knock her up, just to spite her mother. That had been a startling thought. Now she wondered if she was maintaining a friendship with Liz Duncan for the same misguided reason. Liz had and relished the worst reputation in school. She was foul-mouthed and irreverent and promiscuous. Hanging out with her might be for Amy just one more act of rebellion against Mama's traditional values and morals. As before, Amy was unsettled by the thought that she might be screwing up her future just 'cause her mother pain. If that was true, then the resentment and anger she felt towards her mother was much deeper, much darker than she had realized. It also meant that she wasn't in control of her life, and it meant that she was motivated by a black hatred and a corrupting bitterness she couldn't control. She was so unnerved by those ideas that she refused to consider them. She quickly pushed them out of her mind. So, are you going to tell me what's happening? Amy blinked. Well, I broke it off with Jerry. When? Last night. After you left the prom? Why? He's a stupid, mean son of a bitch. He's always been. But that didn't bother you before. Why all of a sudden? What's this got to do with needing $300 or $400? Amy glanced around, afraid that someone might overhear what she was about to say. They were in the last booth. There was no one behind her. On the other side, behind Liz, 4 football jocks were arm wrestling boisterously, and the nearest table, 2 couples, self-styled intellectuals, were intently discussing current movies they called the films and spoke of auteurs as if they all worked in Hollywood for years and knew what it was about. No one was eavesdropping. Amy looked at Liz. Recently, I've been getting sick in the morning. Liz understood immediately. Oh no! What about your period? Missed it. Holy shit! So you see why I need the money? An abortion? Did you tell Jerry? That's why we broke up. He says it isn't his and he won't help. He's a rotten little shit. I don't know what I'm going to do. Damn. I wish you'd gone to the doctor I recommended. I wish you'd gotten that prescription for the pill. I was scared of the pill. You heard all these stories about cancer and blood clots. As soon as I turn 21, I'm going to get the Band-Aid operation, but the pill's essential in the meantime. What's worse, the risk of blood clot or getting knocked up? You're right, Amy said miserably. I don't know why I didn't do what you told me to do. Except maybe I wanted to get pregnant and didn't even know it. Liz leaned forward towards her. Jesus, kid, I'm sorry. I'm sorry as hell. I feel sick. I really do. I just feel sick that you're in this bind. Imagine how I feel. Jeez, what a bad break. I don't know what I'm going to do, Amy said again. I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to go home and tell your old man and your old lady. No, I couldn't. It'd be awful. Look, I know it won't be pretty. There'll be all sorts of screaming, hollering, name calling. They'll dump a hell of a load of guilt on you. It'll be an ordeal for sure. But they aren't going to beat you up or kill you. My mother might. Don't be silly. The old bitch will rant and rave and make you feel miserable for a while. But let's not lose track of what's important here. The important thing is getting your ass into a clinic and getting that baby scraped out of you as soon as possible. Amy winced at Liz's choice of words. All you have to do, Liz said, is grit your teeth, sit through all the shouting, and then they'll pay for the abortion. No, you're forgetting my family is Catholic. They think abortion is a sin. They might think it's a sin, but they won't force a young girl like you to ruin her whole life. Catholics get abortions all the time, no matter what they say. I'm sure you're right, but my mother's too devout. She won't ever agree to it. You really think she'd be willing to live with the shame of an illegitimate grandchild right there in her house? To hurt me, and mainly to teach me a lesson? Yeah, you're sure. Positive. They sat in glum silence for a while. On the jukebox, Donna Summer was singing about the price she had to pay for love. Suddenly, Liz snapped her fingers. I've got it. What? Even Catholics approve of an abortion if the mother's life is in danger, don't they? Not all Catholics, just the most liberal ones approve of it even under those circumstances. And your old lady isn't liberal. Hardly. But your father's better, isn't he? At least about religious stuff. He's not so fanatical as Mama. He might agree to let me have an abortion if they truly thought the baby would destroy my health. All right. So you make him think it's going to destroy your mental health. Dig it? You get suicidal. You threaten to kill yourself if you can't have an abortion. Act like you're half crazy. Be hysterical. Be irrational. Scream, cry, then laugh without having any reason to laugh. Then cry again. Break things. If all that doesn't convince them, then you can make up a phony attempt to slash your wrist. Just be big enough cut to smear some blood around. They won't be sure whether you botched it on purpose or by accident, and they won't want to take any chances. Amy slowly shook her head. It wouldn't work. Why not? I'm not a good actress. I'll bet you'd fool them. Carrying on like that, pretending, well, I'd feel stupid. Would you rather feel pregnant? There must be another way. Like what? I don't know. Face it, kid. This is your best shot. I don't know. I do know. Amy sipped her Coke. After a couple minutes of thought, she said, maybe you're right. Maybe I'll try the suicide bit. It'll work. Just as smooth as glass, you'll see. When will you tell them? Well, I had been thinking about breaking the news right after graduation, if I couldn't find another way out by then. That's 2 weeks. Listen, kid, the sooner the better. 2 weeks won't hurt anything. Maybe in that time I'll find some way to come up with the money myself. You won't. Maybe. You won't. Anyway, you're only 17. You probably couldn't get an abortion without your parents' consent, not even if you had the money to pay for it. I'd bet you'd have to be at least 18 before they'd let you have one on your own. Amy hadn't considered that possibility. She simply didn't think of herself as a minor. She felt 110 years old. Get your head on straight, kid, Liz said. You wouldn't take my advice about the pill? Now get your shit together this time, will you? Please. Please, for Christ's sake, listen to me. The sooner, the better. Amy realized that Liz was right. She leaned back in the booth away from the table, and a wave of resignation swept through her. She sagged as if she was a marionette whose strings had just been cut. Okay, the sooner the better. I'll tell them tonight or tomorrow. Tonight. I don't think I have the strength for it tonight. If I'm going to put on a big suicide act, I'll need to have my wits about me. I'll need to have been rested. Tomorrow, then. No later than tomorrow. Get it over with. Listen, we have a great summer coming up, and if I go west at the end of the year like I'm hoping to, this will probably be the last summer you and I will have together. So you've got to do it upright. We've got to make a lot of memories to last us a long while. Lots of sun, some good dope to smoke, a couple of new guys. It'll be a blast, except it won't be so terrific if you're walking around all bloated and preggy. For Joey Harper, Sunday turned out to be a fine day. The morning started with Mass and Sunday school, of course, which was as boring as usual, but then the day improved rapidly. When his father stopped at Royal City News for the Sunday papers, Joey found a batch of new comic books on the rack and had just enough coin in his pockets to buy the two best issues. Then his mother made chicken and waffles for lunch, was one of his favorite things in the whole wide world. After lunch, his father gave him money to go to the Rialto. That was the theater, a revival house that played only old movies. It was 6 blocks from their house, and he was allowed to ride his bicycle that far, but no further. The Rialto was showing the two monster flicks for the Sunday matinee, The Thing, and It Came from Outer Space. Both pictures were super. Joey liked scary movies. He wasn't exactly sure why. Sometimes sitting in the dark theater watching some slimy thing creep up on the hero, Joey almost peed his pants, but he loved every minute of it. After the movies, he went home for dinner, and his mother made cheeseburgers and baked beans, which was even better than chicken and waffles. Better than just about anything he could think of. He ate until he thought he might bust. Amy came home from the dive at 8 o'clock, an hour and a half before Joey's bedtime, so that he was still awake when she found the rubber snake hanging in her closet. She stormed down the hall calling his name, and then she chased him around his room until she caught him, after she had tickled him and made him promise never to frighten her that way again, a promise they both knew he wouldn't keep. He persuaded her to play a 60-minute time limit game of Monopoly, and that was a whole lot of fun. He beat her, as usual. And for almost grown-up person, she sure didn't know much about financial wheeling and dealing. He loved Amy more than anybody. Maybe that was wrong of him. You were supposed to love your mother and father most of all. Well, after God. God came first, then Mom and Dad. But Mama was hard to love. She was all the time praying with you, praying for you, or giving you a lecture on the proper way to behave, and she told you over and over again that she cared that you grew up the right way, but somehow never showed you that she cared. It was all talk. Daddy was easier to love, but he wasn't around that much. He was always busy doing law stuff, probably saving innocent men from the electric chair and things like that. And when he was home, he spent a lot of time alone working on miniature layouts he built for model trains. He didn't like you messing around in his workshop. Which left Amy. She was there a lot, and she was always there when you needed her. She was the nicest person Joey knew, the nicest he'd ever expected to know, and he was glad that he had her for a sister instead of that crabby, nasty Veronica Culp, who was his best friend Tommy Culp's sister and had to share a house with. Later, after the Monopoly game, when he was in his pajamas, teeth brushed and ready for bed, he said his prayers with Amy, which was much better than saying them with Mama. Amy said them faster than Mama did, and she sometimes changed a word here or there to make the prayers a little bit funny. Like instead of saying, Mother Mary of God, hear my plea, she might say, Mary, Mother of God, hear my plea, or my flea. She always made Joey giggle. But he had to be careful not to laugh too loud, because Mama would wonder what was going on and what was so funny about prayers, and then everyone would be in trouble. Amy tucked him in and kissed him, and finally left him alone in the moon-glow of his nightlight. He snuggled down in the covers and fell asleep almost instantly. Sunday had been a fine day indeed, but Monday began badly. Not long after midnight, in the first few minutes of the new day, Joey was awakened by the spooky, mush-mouthed sound of his mother's whispered conversation. As on another occasion, he kept his eyes closed and pretended to be sleeping. My little angel, maybe not an angel at all inside. She was really sloshed, pickled even. According to Tommy Culp, when somebody was falling down drunk and you said they were pissed, Mama was sure pissed tonight. She rambled on about how she couldn't decide whether he was good, bad, pure, or evil, about how there might be something ugly hidden inside of him and waiting to break out, about how she didn't want to bring devils into the world, about how it was God's work to rid the world of such evil any way you could. And she talked about how she had killed somebody named Victor and hoped she would never have to do the same thing to her precious angel. Joey started to shiver and was deathly afraid that she would discover he was awake. He didn't know what she might do if she knew he had heard her weird mumblings. When he felt on the brink of telling her to shut up and go away, Joey tried desperately to tune her out. He forced himself to think of something else. He concentrated on putting together a detailed mental picture of the big, vicious alien creature in The Thing, which he had seen just that afternoon at the Rialto. The thing in the picture was like a man, only much bigger, with gigantic hands that could tear you to pieces in minutes, and sunken eyes full of fire. Yet it was a plant, an alien plant that was almost indestructible and lived on blood. He could vividly recall the scene in which the scientists were looking for the alien behind a series of doors. They didn't find it. And then they finally gave up, and then the very next door they opened, when they weren't expecting anything, the monster jumped out at them, growling, spitting, and eager to eat somebody. Remembering the unexpected fury of the monster's attack, Joey felt his blood turn to ice as it had in the theater. That scene was so spine-chilling, so tingly, ickly, awful, that he made his mother's drunken ramblings seem harmless by comparison. The things that happened to people in horror movies were so terrible that they made the scary things in life seem tame. Suddenly, Joey wondered if that's why he liked those spooky stories so much. Chapter 6. Mama was always the first up in the morning. She went to Mass every day of the week, even when she was sick, even when she had a really bad hangover. During the summer, when school was out, she would expect Amy and Joey to attend services and take Holy Communion nearly as often as she did. On this Monday morning in May, however, Amy still lay in bed, listening to her mother move through the house and then into the garage, which was directly under Amy's bedroom. The Toyota started on the second try, and the automatic garage door rumbled up, coming to rest with a solid thud that rattled the windows. After her mother had gone, Amy got out of bed, showered, dressed for school, and went downstairs to the kitchen. Her father and Joey were finishing a breakfast of toasted English muffins and orange juice. "You're running late this morning," her father said. "Better grab a quick bite, and we're leaving in 5 minutes." "It's such a beautiful morning. I think I'll walk to school today." "Are you sure you have enough time?" "Oh, yes, plenty of time." "Me too," Joey said. "I want to walk with Amy." "The elementary school is 3 times as far as the high school," Paul Harper said. "Your legs would be worn down to your knees by the time you got there." "Nah, I can make it. I'm rough and ready." "One mean hombre," his father agreed. "But just the same, you'll ride with me." "Aw, shoot." "Bang!" Amy said, pointing a finger at him. Joey grinned. "Come on, hombre. Let's get moving." Amy stood at one of the living room windows watching the man and the boy drive away in the family Pontiac. She had lied to her father. She wasn't going to walk to school. In fact, she didn't even intend to go to school at all today. She returned to the kitchen, made a pot of coffee, poured a steaming mug of it for herself, and then she sat down at the kitchen table to wait for her mother to get back from Mass. Last night, tossing relentlessly in bed, plotting how best to make her confession, she had decided that she should tell her mother first. If Amy sat them down and told them both at the same time, Mama's reaction to the news would be calculated to impress not only her daughter, but her husband. She would even be tougher on Amy than she might be if Amy told her in private. And Amy also knew that if she told her father first, it would look as if she were sneaking around behind her mother's back, trying to drive a wedge between her parents, trying to make an ally out of her father. If Mama thought that was the case, she would be twice as difficult as she otherwise might have been. By telling Mama first, by according to her at least that much special respect, Amy hoped to improve her chances of getting the abortion she wanted. She finished the mug of coffee. She poured herself another, finished that one too. The ticking of the kitchen clock seemed to grow louder and louder until it was a drum beat to which her nerves jumped in sympathy. When Mamma finally came home from Mass, entering the kitchen through the connecting door to the garage, Amy had never been more tense. The back and underarms of her blouse were damp with perspiration. In spite of the hot coffee, there seemed to be a lump of ice in her stomach. "Morning, Mamma." Her mother stopped in surprise, still holding the door open, the shadowy interior of the garage visible behind her. "What are you doing here?" "I want to. You should be in school. I stayed home so I could. This. Isn't this a finals exam week?" "No, that's next week. This week we just review material for the test." "Well, that's important too." "Yes, but I don't think I'll be going to school today." As Mamma closed and locked the door of the garage, she said, "What's wrong? Are you sick?" "Not exactly. What do you mean, not exactly?" she asked, putting her purse on the counter by the sink. "You're either sick or you're not. And if you aren't, you should be in school." "I have to talk to you." Her mother came to the table and stared down at her. "Talk? About what?" "Well," although Amy had drunk a lot of coffee, her mouth was so dry that her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. She swallowed, licked her parched lips, cleared her throat, and at last said, "I have to withdraw some money from my savings account." "What are you talking about?" "I need $400. "Well, that's ridiculous." "No, I really need it, Mamma." "For what?" "I'd rather not say." "You'd rather not say, huh?" "That's right." "You want to withdraw $400 that's meant for your college tuition, and you don't want to say what you're going to do with it." "Mamma, please. After all, I earned it." The consideration turned to anger. "Now you listen to me, and you listen good, young lady. Your father does well enough at his law practice, but he doesn't do all that well. He's not F. Lee Bailey. You want to go to college, and college is expensive these days. You're going to have to help pay for it. In fact, you're going to have to pay for most of it. We'll let you live here, of course, and we'll pay for your food and your clothes and your medical bills while you're going to the junior college. But you'll have to meet the tuition out of your savings. When you go away to the university in a couple of years, we'll send you some money for living expenses, but you'll have to pay for that tuition too. We just can't do more than that. We'll be sacrificing as it is." "If you didn't spend so much money trying to impress Father O'Hara with your devotion to St. Mary's Church, and you and Daddy didn't contribute a tithe and a half to show what good people you were, maybe you'd be able to do more for your own children," Amy thought. "Charity starts at home, Mamma. Isn't that what the Bible tells us? Besides, if you hadn't made me tithe to St. Mary's, I'd have that extra $400 now that I needed it." Amy wished she could say all of that, but she didn't dare. She didn't want to completely alienate her mother before she had even a chance to mention the pregnancy. Anyway, no matter how she tried to express what she was thinking, no matter what words she chose, she would sound pretty petty and selfish. But she wasn't selfish, damn it. She knew it was a good thing to give money to the church, but there had to be limits, and you had to give for the right reasons. Otherwise, it didn't mean anything. Sometimes Amy suspected that her mother hoped to buy a place in heaven, and that was definitely the wrong reason to give to the church. Amy forced herself to look up at her mother and smile. "Mama, I've already got that small scholarship for next year. If I work real hard, I'll probably get scholarships every year, even if they're all just small ones. And I'll be working at the dive summers and weekends. With that, I'll be earning, plus what I've got in the bank already. I'll have more than enough to pay my own way. By the time I get to Ohio State, I won't need to ask you and Daddy for help, not even for living expenses. I can spare that $400 right now. Mama, I can spare it easy." "No. And don't think you can sneak behind my back and get the money on your own. My name's on the account along with yours. You're still a minor, don't forget. And as long as I can, I'm going to protect you from yourself. I'm not letting you throw your college money away on trendy new clothes that you don't need or on some other bauble you've seen in a store window." "It isn't new clothes I want, Mama." "Whatever. I won't let you. It's not a silly bauble I want either." "I don't care what sort of foolishness." "An abortion." Her mother gaped at her. "What?" Touched off by a fuse of fear, the words exploded from Amy. "I've had some morning sickness. I missed my period, and I'm really pregnant. I don't know. I am. Jerry Galloway got me pregnant. I didn't mean for it to happen. I'm sorry it happened. So very sorry. I hate myself. I really do. I really hate myself, but I have to get an abortion. I've just got to have one. Please, please. I just got to. Mama's face suddenly turned white, chalk white. Even her lips were pale. Mama, do you understand that I can't possibly have this baby? I just can't go ahead and have it, Mama. Mama closed her eyes. She swayed, and for a moment she looked as if she would faint. I know what I did was wrong, Mama, Amy said, beginning to cry. I feel dirty. I don't know if I'll ever feel clean again. I hate myself. And I know that an abortion is even more sin than what I did. And I know that. And I'm afraid of my soul, but I'm more afraid of going ahead and having the baby. I have my life to live. Mama, I've got my life. Mama's eyes opened. She stared down at Amy and she tried to speak, but she was too shocked to be able to get any words out. Her mouth moved without producing a sound. Mama? With such speed that Amy hardly saw it coming, her mother raised a hand and slapped her face once, twice, hard. Amy cried out in pain and surprise, and she raised one arm to protect herself. Mama grabbed her by the blouse and dragged her to her feet in a discerning display of strength. The chair fell over with a crash. Her mother shook her as if she were a bundle of rags. Crying, frightened, Amy said, Mama, please don't hurt me. Forgive me, Mama, please. You filthy, rotten, ungrateful little bitch. Mama, you're stupid, stupid, so damn stupid, her mother screamed, spraying her with spittle as hot as stinging venom. You're an ignorant child and a stupid little slut. You don't know what could happen. You don't have the slightest idea. You're ignorant. You don't know what you might give birth to. You don't know. Amy was unwilling and unable to defend herself. Mama pushed her, pulled her, jerked her from side to side, this way and that, shook her and furiously until her teeth rattled and her blouse tore. You don't know what sort of thing might come out of you. God knows what it might be. What is she talking about? Amy wondered desperately. She sounds as if she's heard Jerry's curse and believes it'll come true. What's going on here? What's wrong with her? Second by second, her mother was becoming increasingly violent. Amy hadn't really believed that her mama would kill her. That's what she had told Liz, but she'd been exaggerating. At least she had thought she was exaggerating. But now, as her mother continued to curse her and shake her, Amy began to worry what Mama would seriously hurt her, and she tried to squirm away. But Mama refused to let go. The two women tottered sideways and bumped solidly against the table. A nearby empty mug fell over, spun around twice, and dropped off the table, scattering droplets of cold coffee and smashed into a dozen pieces when it hit the floor. Mama stopped shaking Amy, but her eyes were still demented and wildly lighted. Pray, she said urgently. We have to pray there's no baby inside you. We've got to pray that it's a mistake and that you're wrong. She pulled Amy down roughly to the floor onto her knees, and they knelt side by side on the cold tiles, and Mama began to pray loudly, and she held Amy by one arm, held her so tightly that Mama's fingers seemed to pierce Amy's flesh and touch her bare bone. And Amy wept and pleaded to be released, and Mama slapped her again and told her to pray, demanded that she pray. And Mama asked the Holy Virgin to be merciful, but Mama wasn't merciful when she saw that Amy's head wasn't bowed far enough, for she grabbed her daughter by the back of the neck and forced her face toward the floor. Forced it down and down until Amy's forehead was touching the tiles, until her nose was pressed into a wet splotch of spilled coffee, and Amy kept saying, Mama, please, over and over again, Mama, please. But Mama wasn't listening to her, because Mama was just busy praying to everyone, Mary and Joseph and Jesus and God the Father, God the Holy Spirit, and she prayed to various saints as well, and when Amy gasped for breath, a couple of drops of coffee slipped up her nose from the small puddle into which she was now pressed, and she sputtered and gagged, but Mama held her down, held her even harder than before, squeezing the back of her neck. And Mama wailed and whined and shouted and beat the floor with her free hand and thrashed about and shuddered with religious passion begged and wailed and whimpered for mercy, mercy for herself and for her wayward daughter, howled and wept and pleaded in a fashion with Catholics usually disdain, in a devout frenzy that was more suited to the fundamental Christianity for the Church of Nazarene, failed and babbled fervently until she was finally all prayed out, hoarse, exhausted, and limp. The ensuing silence was more dramatic than a thunderclap would have been. Mamma let go of Amy's neck. At first, Amy remained as her mother had left her, face against the floor, but after a few seconds she lifted her head and rocked back onto her knees. Mamma's hand had cramped from maintaining such an iron grip on Amy's neck. She stared down at the claw-like fingers, massaging them with her good hand, and she was breathing hard. Amy raised her hands to her face, wiped the coffee and the tears. She couldn't stop shaking. Outside, clouds passed over the sun, and the morning light streaming through the kitchen window rippled like bright water, then grew dimmer. The clock ticked hollowly. To Amy, the silence was frightening, like the endless instant between the skipped heartbeat and the next sound of your pulse, when you could not help but wonder if perhaps that vital muscle in your chest would ever expand or contract. When Mamma spoke at last, Amy jerked involuntarily. "Get up," Mamma said coldly. "Go upstairs, wash your face, comb your hair." "Yes, Mamma." They both stood. Amy's legs were weak. Her skirt was rumpled. She pressed it down with her quivering hands, smoothed the wrinkled material. "Change into fresh clothes," Mamma said, her voice flat and emotionless. "Yes, Mamma." "I'll call Dr. Spangler and see if he has an opening in his appointment book this morning. We'll go in right away if he can take us." "Dr. Spangler?" Amy asked, confused. "You'll have to take a pregnancy test, of course. There are other reasons why you might have missed your period. We can't really be sure until we get the test results." "I know I am, Mamma," Amy said shakily, softly. "I know. I'm going to have a baby. If the test is positive, then we'll make arrangements to take care of things as soon as possible." Amy couldn't believe the implications of that statement. She said, "Take care of things?" "You'll get the abortion you want," Mamma said, glaring at her with eyes that contained no forgiveness. "You don't really mean it?" "Yes, you must have an abortion. It's the only way." Amy almost cried out with relief, but at the same time she was afraid, for she had figured that her mother would extract a terrible price for this amazing concession. "But abortion, isn't it a sin?" Amy asked, struggling to comprehend her mother's reasoning. "We can't tell your father. It's going to have to be kept secret from him. He wouldn't approve." "But I didn't think you would approve either," Amy said, bewildered. "I don't approve," Mamma said sharply, a trace of emotion returning to her voice. "Abortion is murder. It's a mortal sin, and I didn't approve at all. But as long as you've got to live in this house, I won't have such a thing as this hanging over my head. I simply won't have it. I won't live in fear of what might come. I won't go through that terror again." "Mamma, I don't understand. You talk as if you know for a fact that the baby will be deformed or something." They stared at each other for a moment, and Amy saw more than anger and reproach in her mother's dark eyes. There was fear in those eyes, too. A stark and powerful fear that transmitted itself to Amy, chilling her. "Someday," Mamma said, "when the time is right, I'm going to tell you." "Tell me what?" "Someday, when you're ready to be married, when you're properly engaged, I was going to tell you why you must never have a child. But you couldn't wait for the proper time, could you?" "Oh, no, not you. You had to give yourself away. You had to pull up your skirts the first chance you got. Still little more than a child yourself, and you had to throw yourself at some high school boy. You had to rush out and fornicate in the back seat of a car like a worthless little slut, like the worst kind of pig. And now maybe it's inside of you, growing." "What are you talking about?" Amy asked, wondering if her mother had completely lost it. "It wouldn't do you any good for me to tell you. You wouldn't listen. You'd probably even welcome such a child. You'd embrace it just like he did. I've always said there was something evil in you. I've always told you that you had to keep it in check. But now you've loosened the reins and that dark thing is running free. That evil part of you. You've loosened the evil in you, and sooner or later, one way or the other, you'll have a child. You'll bring one of them into the world, no matter what I say to you, no matter how I plead with you. But you won't do it in this house, and it won't happen here. I'll see to that. We'll go to Dr. Spangler, and he'll abort it for you. And if there's any sin in that, if there's mortal sin for someone to bear the burden of it, it will rest entirely on your shoulders, not mine. You understand?" Amy nodded. "It won't matter to you, will it?" her mother said meaningly. "One more sin won't matter to you, will it? Because you're already destined for hell anyway, aren't you?" "No, no, Mama, don't." "Yes, you are. You're destined to be the one of the devil's own women. One of his handmaidens, aren't you? I see that now. I see it. All my efforts have been in vain. You can't be saved. So what's one more sin to you? Nothing. It's nothing to you. You'll just laugh it off." "Mama, don't talk to me like that." "I'm talking to you like you deserve to be talked to. A girl who behaves the way you've behaved, how can she expect me to speak to her any differently? Please, get a move on. Clean yourself up. I'll call the doctor." Confused by the several twists of events that had taken, baffled by her mother's certainty that the baby would be disformed and disfigured, wondering about Mama's sanity, Amy went upstairs. In the bathroom, she washed her face. Her eyes were bloodshot from crying. In her bedroom, she took another skirt and a clean blouse from the closet. She stripped off her sweat-streaked, crinkled clothes. For a moment she stood in bra and panties before the full-length mirror, staring at her belly. Why is Mama so certain my baby will be deformed? Amy asked herself worriedly. How can she know such thing for sure? Is it because she thinks I'm evil, and that I deserve this sort of thing, a deformed baby? A sign to the world that I'm a devil's handmaiden? That's sick. It's twisted thinking. It's ridiculous and crazy and unfair. I'm not a bad person. I've made some mistakes, I'll admit that. I've made a lot of mistakes for someone my age. But I'm not evil, damn it. I'm not evil. Am I? She stared into the reflection of her own eyes. Am I? Shivering, she dressed for the visit to the doctor's office.